Welcome to Fractured Chaos.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn, 28, chronically caffeinated and professionally petty when the situation calls for it. I work in project management for a mid-sized tech company that shall remain nameless, mostly because I still need this job, and also because what I'm about to tell you could probably get me sued. But let's be honest, some stories are worth the legal risk. You ever sit in a Zoom meeting pretending to take notes while mentally drafting a murder plot? Because same. That's how most of my Wednesdays start. Mild caffeine jitters, a half-dead succulent on my windowsill. His name is Gerald, and he's hanging on by sheer spite. And my boss, Nadia, talking to us like we're one bad font choice away from being publicly executed. She called it team synergy. I called it corporate Stockholm syndrome. But last Wednesday, that's the day the lies caught up with her, and I made sure her husband was watching every second of it. Let me paint you a picture of Nadia Whitmore. 43, flawlessly Botoxed, with the kind of smile that could sell insurance to a dead person. She wore those statement necklaces that cost more than my rent and had a voice that could make good morning sound like a threat. She once told an intern to cry quieter during a performance review. She micromanaged us so hard that I once got pinged on Slack while I was in surgery. No joke. I was getting my appendix out, loopy on anesthesia, and she asked if I could just pop on mute and listen to the client call. I told her my intestines were literally outside my body. She asked if that was going to affect my deliverables. Nadia had this thing where she treated everyone like disposable contact lenses. Useful until they weren't, then tossed without a second thought. She'd schedule meetings during lunch, cancel vacation requests via automated email, and had the audacity to end every conference call with, "Let's make magic happen, team," while looking like she'd rather set us all on fire. The woman was a walking LinkedIn post about toxic positivity. But here's the thing about working closely with someone for 2 years. You start noticing patterns. And Nadia? She had more patterns than a geometry textbook. For the past 6 months, I'd been covering for her doctor appointments, family emergencies, and one particularly creative Zoom fatigue recovery day, which is apparently a thing now. But I wasn't born yesterday, and I definitely wasn't stupid. Her makeup was always suspiciously fresh for someone coming from medical procedures. Her camera angles were too flattering for someone dealing with family crises. And there was always this background noise, music, laughter, and occasionally a man's voice that definitely wasn't her husband Rob's. Deep voice, smooth, the kind that probably ordered wine by describing its notes and undertones. Rob, by contrast, sounded like he gargled gravel and spoke exclusively in IT troubleshooting terminology. Sweet guy, though. He contracted with our company doing cybersecurity, the kind of quiet genius who could probably hack the Pentagon, but used his powers to fix printer connectivity issues and remind people to update their passwords. Nadia treated him like office furniture, functional when needed, ignored otherwise. So I did what any petty millennial with a therapist, trust issues, and a revenge complex would do. I started documenting everything, every lie, every fake excuse, every time she called in from a clinic, but had a wine glass reflecting in her laptop screen. I created a folder on my desktop called Interesting Observations and started screenshotting inconsistencies like I was collecting rare Pokemon cards. The woman's operational security was Olympic-level terrible. She'd claim to be at her dermatologist while clearly sitting in a restaurant booth. She'd call in sick, but forget to mute herself while ordering room service. One time, she insisted she was dealing with a plumbing emergency at home, while I could literally see hotel towels in the background and hear elevator music. I mean, at least make an effort, Nadia. The breaking point came on a Tuesday that started like any other exercise in corporate theater. Nadia breezed into our morning stand-up 20 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors and that particular shade of lipstick that screamed, "I did something I probably shouldn't have." "Sorry, team," she announced, not sounding sorry at all. Had to handle some urgent personal business, family stuff. You know how it is. Except none of us knew how it was, because Nadia never talked about her family unless she was using them as excuses. An hour later, she called me into a one-on-one. "Ashlyn, sweetheart," she said, and I immediately knew I was about to hate whatever came next. "I need you to handle something delicate for me." She slid a sticky note across her desk. On it, she'd written, "Forward to team, urgent client matter." Attached was a printed email. I glanced at it without really reading, just enough to see it was some kind of confirmation. Hotel maybe, or restaurant reservation. "Just send this along to everyone," she said, already turning back to her computer, "and make sure you emphasize the urgency. Client relations, you know how it is." I nodded, took the paper, and headed back to my desk. That's when I actually read it. It was a hotel confirmation. 2 nights at the Grand Metropolitan downtown, under the name N. Caldwell, which happened to be Nadia's maiden name. A detail I only knew because she'd mentioned it during one of her rare vulnerable moments about keeping her professional identity separate from her personal life. The reservation was for 2 guests. The special request section had a note: champagne service and late checkout, anniversary celebration. And at the bottom, in the guest services notes, can't wait to taste you again. I sat there for a full minute, just staring at this thing. She wanted me to forward her romantic hotel confirmation to our entire team. As a client matter, marked urgent. This wasn't just careless, this was weapons grade stupid. I walked back to her office. Hey Nadia, I think there might be some confusion with this email. She didn't even look up from her screen. No confusion, just send it. I'm swamped. It's a hotel reservation for this weekend? With someone named M? Ashlyn? She finally looked at me, and her expression could have frozen hell. I said send it. That means send it. Don't make me explain delegation to you. So I did exactly what she asked, just not to who she expected. I forwarded that email to exactly one person, Rob Whitmore, cybersecurity contractor and devoted husband of 6 years, along with a note. Found this mixed in with the client files. Thought you should see it before I archive it with the other personal items that accidentally end up in our shared folders. Professional, helpful, completely innocent. Then I sat back and waited. Rob responded within an hour. Thanks for catching that. Can we schedule some time to discuss file organization protocols? Seems like there might be some security concerns with personal information getting mixed in with business documents. Translation: holy shit, my wife is cheating on me and I need to figure out what to do about it. The next day, Nadia announced she'd be taking a long weekend for personal development. She'd be back Monday for our quarterly team review meeting, the big one, with clients, stakeholders, and yes, all our contractors, including Rob. Perfect timing. I spent that weekend doing what I do best: strategic planning and mild scheming. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn energy that makes you believe in fresh starts and karmic justice. Our quarterly review was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp, 90 minutes of performance metrics, goal alignment, and corporate buzzword bingo. I logged into Zoom 15 minutes early, which gave me time to test my screen sharing and double-check my presentation materials. Nothing unusual there. I'm always prepared. What was unusual was my Zoom display name. Instead of Ashlyn James, PM, I'd changed it to simply Professional Development. That's what Nadia had called her weekend getaway, after all. Rob joined the call at 9:58, camera off, microphone muted. Standard operating procedure for him. Nadia swept in at 10:03, looking refreshed and glowing in that way that comes from expensive skincare or recent orgasms, possibly both. Good morning, everyone, she chirped. Hope you all had restful weekends. I certainly did. Sometimes you just need to invest in yourself, you know? Professional development, self-care, all that good stuff. She was really leaning into the theme. I spent the weekend at this amazing retreat, she continued, clearly unable to help herself. Really focused on personal growth and exploring new connections. You should all try it sometime. I unmuted myself. That sounds wonderful, Nadia. Where was this retreat? Oh, just a little place downtown. Very exclusive. Very intimate. The Grand Metropolitan? I asked innocently. She paused, just for a second. But in that second, I saw her entire facade crack like ice on a windshield. How did you... Oh, I remember you mentioning it, I said smoothly. Didn't you say something about their champagne service being exceptional? Rob's camera suddenly flickered on. He didn't say anything, just sat there, perfectly still, looking directly at his wife through the screen. Nadia's face went through about 17 different emotions in the span of 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, that artificial smile she wore like armor. Well, she said, voice tighter than shrink wrap. Let's focus on business, shall we? Rob, darling, I didn't realize you'd be joining us today. Ashlyn invited me, Rob said quietly. Said there were some file organization issues we needed to discuss, security protocols and such. I nodded helpfully. Yes, remember? That personal information that kept getting mixed in with our business documents? I thought Rob should be aware of the patterns. Patterns? Nadia's voice had climbed half an octave. Oh, you know, the way private communications sometimes end up in our shared folders. Hotel confirmations, personal messages, that sort of thing. I've been documenting the occurrences to help improve our data security. Rob leaned forward slightly. What kind of personal messages? And that's when I made my move. Actually, let me just share my screen for a second. I put together a little presentation about information security best practices. I started screen sharing, but instead of opening my presentation, I accidentally opened my desktop folder, the one labeled Interesting Observations, for exactly 4 seconds, just long enough for everyone to see the subfolder names. Hotel confirmations and Caldwell, background voice analysis, timeline discrepancies, message screenshots. Then I quickly switched to my actual presentation, looking flustered. Oops, sorry about that, wrong folder. The silence was deafening. Finally, Rob unmuted himself. Nadia, who's M? More silence. The person who's been texting you about tasting things, the one from the hotel confirmation, the one whose voice I've been hearing in the background of your calls for the past 3 months. You could have heard a pin drop in cyberspace. Nadia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. This is inappropriate for a work meeting? You made it work-related when you asked me to forward your personal correspondence to the team, I said calmly. Multiple times, actually. I have documentation. Rob's camera was still on, and I watched him processing everything in real time. The quiet guy who fixed our technical problems was putting together a different kind of puzzle now. How long? He asked. Nadia looked trapped, cornered, like she was calculating whether it was better to confess or double down on denial. She chose denial. This is ridiculous. I don't know what Ashlyn thinks she's discovered, but 6 months, Rob interrupted. That's when you started working late. That's when the doctor appointments started. That's when you began treating me like a roommate instead of a husband. Rob, please, not here. No, this is perfect, he said, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. This is absolutely perfect, because now I don't have to pretend I haven't been noticing things too. He looked directly into his camera, speaking to all of us, but really just to her. I've been tracking your location for months, Nadia. Not because I'm controlling, because I was worried. You kept saying you were sick, but you were never where you claimed to be. The Grand Metropolitan, the Riverside Inn, that boutique place on 5th Street. Always the same pattern, always Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, always when you told me you were at work. Nadia's face had gone completely white. And the phone calls, Rob continued. Did you know our home security system records audio? All those late-night conversations about meeting up, about how much you missed each other, about planning your next business trip to Chicago, which, by the way, your company doesn't have any clients in Chicago. I checked. I was watching a marriage dissolve in real time, and honestly, I felt a little bad about it. But only a little. Rob, Nadia whispered, we can talk about this at home. No, he said firmly, we can't, because I won't be there when you get home. I've been staying at my brother's place for the past week, trying to figure out how to handle this. But you know what? Ashlyn just made it easy for me. He looked directly at me through the screen. Thank you for paying attention, for documenting everything, for not letting me live in denial anymore. Then he looked back at his wife. I'm filing for separation this afternoon. My lawyer will be in touch. And with that, Rob logged off, leaving Nadia and me and 3 other bewildered team members in the most awkward Zoom call in corporate history. Nadia sat there for a moment, staring at her screen like it might spontaneously combust and end her misery. Then she looked at me with pure, concentrated hatred. You have no idea what you've just done. I forwarded some documents and made some observations about data security, I replied. All well within my job description. This isn't over. Actually, I said, I think it is. She logged off without another word. The aftermath was swift and brutal. HR called me that afternoon, not to discipline me, to commend me for identifying a serious security breach. Apparently, mixing personal business with company resources was a bigger deal than I'd realized, especially when it involved falsifying timesheets and using company communication tools for personal affairs. Nadia was placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. By Friday, she'd been terminated for violation of company ethics policies. The following Monday, I got called into the senior director's office. Ashlyn, he said, we need someone to step into Nadia's role temporarily, someone detail-oriented, someone who pays attention to irregularities. 3 months later, the temporary was dropped from my title. As for Nadia and Rob, the divorce was finalized within 6 months. Rob kept their house, their dog, and apparently, his sense of humor. He still contracts with our company, and occasionally in team meetings, he'll catch my eye and give the slightest nod. That's all I need. I heard through the office grapevine that Nadia moved to Chicago with someone named Morris who works in finance and has a thing for Hotel Champagne. I hope they're very happy together. I also hope she learned better operational security. But probably not. As for me, I learned something valuable about the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is personal, messy, and usually makes you feel worse afterward. Justice is just documentation, paying attention, being in the right place at the right time with the right information. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people hang themselves with their own rope. You just have to make sure someone's holding the camera. And maybe, just maybe, schedule a performance review at exactly the right moment. Because timing, as they say in our business, is everything.